Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have guest Zehra Mahoon. Zehra is a master mindset and law of attraction coach who has written several books, including Unlimited, a 40-day guide to law of attraction workbook to accelerate manifestation. Zehra's teachings make the law of attraction easy to understand and simple to apply. Her mission is to teach others how to find their joy through the power of heart and mind alignment based on the law of attraction. After committing to transforming her self-worth, she went from being massively in debt to owning multiple properties and creating a thriving business. She shares her personal journey to help others understand the power of reclaiming self-worth. Well, welcome, Zehra. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
I'm excited to be here. So much fun.
When I was putting together the show notes, I thought, let's talk about recognizing and releasing resistance, because I know this is an area that I have stumbled upon myself. And I know that many of my listeners could be dealing with this as well. And so I was just sharing with you before we started recording, when you reached out to me to do this show, I recognized your name and I had realized that I had actually bought a couple of your books, Unlimited and Thrive, back in 2017, 2018, when I started to dive into my learning and understanding of the law of attraction. And so, Zehra, today you are at a place where you feel very financially secure. You're very confident in what the future holds for you with your life. However, this wasn't always the case for you. And I remember reading in your books, you were living in another country, a foreign country to you, and your husband was unfaithful, and that left you to provide for two small children alone and with no job and no money. And so I'd like for us to start off with you sharing your story on where you were before you learned about the law of attraction and where you are now, because I think that this is really important for people to see. It doesn't really matter where you are now, you can change in this now moment. So I'd love for you to share your story with all of us.
Absolutely. That I'm excited to do so, actually, because I feel that sharing our stories is what helps people see that their situations are not unique, and that, if other people can figure it out, they can figure it out as well. So, Tanya, I am absolutely blown away with what I have accomplished in a very short space of time. As you were saying just now, owning multiple properties and finding myself secure financially. And not only that, but having improved all aspects of my life, being more confident in myself, having raised my kids and now having a thriving business. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this would have seemed absolutely impossible.
I can imagine.
I can still remember the day when I was this close from, okay, the bank is going to repossess the house, and um, and then just trusting that a way will come, a way will, like, it's not over yet. I think that we have this tendency to accept defeat without giving ourselves a chance. And that was me. I got so close to just giving up and digging a hole and hiding. And I opened myself to saying to the universe and to myself, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever it is. Like, if I have to jump, I'll jump. If I have to dive, I'll dive. I'll do whatever it's going to take, but I am going to change this. And so, yes, I had sleepless nights because that bankruptcy situation didn't happen overnight. It was coming. Mm-hmm. It was coming for a while. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You could see it coming. And so, yes, there was fear. Yes, there were sleepless nights. Yes, I felt all alone. My thoughts were like, oh my God, forget other people, what am I going to tell my kids?
Mhm.
Like, how am I going to explain to them that I worked so hard to give them stability, and now that stability is going to get taken away? How am I even going to approach that with my children? And just that feeling of feeling like a failure, like
Mhm.
feeling like, why did I make those decisions that I made that landed me here? Like, how could I do this to myself? And just nauseating feeling that, nobody's going to come and save me. I have to save myself. So I went through all of those thoughts, and at the end of it, I just said, I'm going to open myself up. There's got to be a way. And when I woke up the next day, I had ideas flowing into my head of what I should do. And I had promised myself that no matter how hard it was to do whatever needed to be done, I was going to be willing to go and talk to whoever I needed to talk to, do whatever needed to be done. And the biggest lesson I learned was I did not want to talk about it. You see, I didn't want to ask for help because I
Yeah.
didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. We all create this facade of super happy families and super successful lives. And sometimes that's just a facade. There's nothing behind it. And so that was one of the reasons that even though I needed help, but I wasn't asking for help.
It's like that sense of shame too, right? It's
Exactly.
we feel ashamed
Exactly.
that we've gotten to
Yes.
this place.
Yes.
Mhm.
How can I have got here? Here I am living, like, yes, my husband left me, but then I worked hard and I created all of this. And we were at that point in time living in a mansion. My children were going to private school. And like, and how can I take my son away from private school? And how can I, like, no, 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 I don't want to do all of those things. But then I had to eat the pride. Like, it was like the pride really isn't worth it if the cost of it is going to be that you're going to lose all of this. Then the pride isn't worth it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put my pride aside and I'm going to follow whatever guidance I'm receiving. Because here's the thing, guidance doesn't just come from the universe, guidance comes to you based on what your reality is, which is the part that your mind supplies. So both work in tandem to create solutions for you that are appropriate for you at that point in time. And so the guidance I had was to ask for help. And I had to think about what am I going to say? Who am I going to reach out to? Because you have to be selective,
Mhm.
right? Who am I going to reach out to? What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And I just had this massive feeling of something stuck in my throat when I made the calls that I had to make. But I made those calls regardless. And I am so, so, so grateful that my friends and my family stood by me and they helped me through a very difficult situation. So once the storm, that was like, I've got a hole in the ship, it's going to sink. So I plugged the hole, but of course that was temporary. It wasn't permanent. And so then started the work. Okay, now I got to mend things. My friends have helped me to get through that difficult period, but now what do I need to do in order to mend things? And I found that there are two things that we have to do side by side. We do have to take action. A lot of times this misconception is that, oh, law of attraction means no action, it's just going to fall in my lap. No, 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 no. You do have to take action because it's like you're bleeding. And if you don't stop the bleeding, then how are you going to recover? How are you going to heal? So, in that stopping that bleeding, action is required. So, that was the first thing. But I realized that alongside taking the action, I also have to do the energy work. I also have to do the work on my belief systems because it was my beliefs that got me to the place that I was in. So I realized that I have to do both things. I have to keep putting food on the table, involving action, while I figure out how to change my mindset so that I can not only improve the situation, but I want to make sure I never go there again. Right. And so we have this tendency of focusing on just one thing, that I have a problem and I just need to get out of it. And when you do that, there's another aspect, the energetic aspect, that gets missed a lot of time. So I want to ask you, have you ever been in that place where you were going through a situation where all hell was breaking loose, and there were some tough things that you had to do in order to come out of that situation?
Absolutely, Zahra. You know, this was about 5 years ago. I had been working in healthcare for about 20 years and I was burnt out. I was exhausted and I knew I needed to make a shift. I was living in Florida at the time and I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted more mountains and seasons. And it took me many years to get to a point of building up the courage to quit the job, to move across the country, to change my life. And, you know, looking back at that time, there was a lot. Yes, I had a stable job. Yes, I had, you know, all these things on the outside. Like you said, it was that mask, it was that facade. But inside, I
Exactly.
just felt so unsatisfied and so unfulfilled. And I didn't know what to do. So you know what I did? I started booking trips. I started booking trips to places where I thought I would live, and I'd stay there for a week to 10 days, pretend I lived there to see if I could make that work. And then lo and behold, a year later, I had moved, you know, to the Pacific Northwest. And so, you know, I think too, there's that underlying fear that really paralyzes us. And I know for me, you know, it sounds like your fear was reaching out to others and, you know, putting yourself in that vulnerable situation, where my
Yes.
fear was making a change, getting out of my comfort zone. I could have sat
Yeah.
there in that job. I could have sat there in that location for the rest of my life, but I didn't feel as if I was living. I didn't really feel like I was living my purpose and my path at that time. And so, you know, when we go through that, you know, you spent like, you know, this was about 15 years ago for you. So I went through this about 5 to 7 years ago when I, you know, made that transition. But you talk a little bit in your book about how that learning about the law of attraction actually created more of a mess in your life than it did in the beginning. And that was my situation as well. It
That
was,
was the mess. That bankruptcy, that was the mess that law of attraction created in my life.
yeah. So let's talk about that, because I think everybody thinks, oh, you know, you start learning law of attraction and you're going to magically manifest the lotto ticket. You know, let's talk about when you first start realizing you have these belief systems that are not serving you and you need to work through them, because that was my situation too. By the time I got out here and I made the move, I went into complete panic and complete fear. Like, what have I done? You know, like, because
Yep.
that's when I really needed to do the work. So let's talk about that in your experience and how we can overcome that during when, you know, when you're in the moment.
So there's this concept we call beginner's luck. And what beginner's luck is that most people come into law of attraction with hope that it's going to help them make things better. And that takes them high on the emotional scale. It makes them feel good. It makes them look forward with a positive attitude. And that's the beginner's luck. But then that luck fizzles out, because if you can't hold yourself in that vibration, and nobody can, because we all go up and down the emotional scale. So if you are not used to staying in that vibration, you will stay there for a little while and then you lose it. And that's what happened to me. I found law of attraction, I improved everything. And then I couldn't hold on to that steady vibration and went downhill. In fact, downhill is like it's a slant. I plummeted. It wasn't a slant. It was like all the way down, like a rock. And so,
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm laughing at the way you're presenting it, because I'm looking at my scenario. It's very
yeah,
similar.
yeah, it's funny now. It is funny now. But at that time, it was excruciating. It was excruciating. The thing that changed for me was a realization that I had one day, and I still remember, when you have your aha moments, you don't forget them ever, I don't think. And I still remember that big aha moment that I had. And it was the realization that if I thought I was positive, you see, I thought I was being really positive. And the aha that happened for me was, oh my God, if I was really positive minded, then all of this would not have happened. So that means that I think I'm positive, but I don't really understand what it means to be positive. Because had I been really positive, all of this would never have happened. And so I went in search of educating myself as to the difference between being positive and being negative. Because my confusion was, and that confusion was a confusion that I had since I was in grade school, is that being strong means that you're being positive.
Mhm.
But if you are really positive, you never have to be strong.
Mm. Putting on a happy face, even though you're not happy
Mhm.
behind
Yeah.
the facade. Mhm.
Strong means I'm going to brush it under the carpet and I'm going to go on as if nothing happened. I'm going to pick myself up off the floor and keep going without dealing with the stuff that caused me to go down. That's being strong. So I was plenty strong, but I wasn't positive. When you are positive, the opportunity to be strong never arises because things don't get that bad.
Uh-huh.
And that realization caused me to step back. And that's how Thrive, the book you mentioned, Thrive was written that way.
Mhm.
It was written as a result of the research that I did between uh, about what is really negative and what is really positive. And then Unlimited, the other book that you're referring to, was a set of practices that I developed for myself that I realized when I stop doing these practices, my life goes downhill. So that, so then I came to a point by the time I wrote the workbook, Unlimited, I got to this point where I realized I can never stop doing this work. So I've got to have like a checklist reminder that tells me I've got to do this, 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 and this. That I have to do these things every single day if I'm going to keep my life at an even keel. And that's how the workbook was born. It was initially a checklist that I started sharing with my clients and people that I knew and cared about who needed help. And then I decided, well, I might as well make it available to everyone because why not, right?
Yeah.
I've created it. So that's how the workbook was born.
That's neat. And really what you're doing is you're just programming your subconscious. And, I was big into sports, growing up, and I every day would go out and shoot free throws every single day to a point where it was exhausting, but I had a 96% free throw average, and I was the one they would put in at the crunch time, but had I not practiced that, it became autopilot. I got to a point where I could shoot them with my eyes closed, but it took a lot of programming and a lot of practice to get there. And I do feel when we're working with the law of attraction, it's very similar to that. We've got to make it a daily routine. And you talk about how it's not a tool, it's a lifestyle. Can you kind of
Yes.
share what your thoughts are behind that? Because I feel the same way.
Well, it's simple, really. A tool is something you take out of the toolbox, you use it, and then you put it back. My realization was I had to do these things all the time. Therefore, they could not be a tool that I put back in the drawer. I have to do it every day, which means it has to be a lifestyle. And furthermore, it can only be a lifestyle if I'm not if I make it part of my life rather than have it be a chore that I have to do. So what I started doing was figuring out how can I incorporate the practices that I use in order to keep myself high vibrationally and attach them to things that I do as part of my life regardless. How can I create harmony rather than, because if you're doing a workbook, it's like a chore. Okay, now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do these exercises. I wanted it to fit into my life and become part of my life, not be something external that I did. So for example, in the workbook, I share that, you start off your morning and um, start off your morning with appreciation. And so what I did was, instead of sitting down and saying, oh, now I need to take time out for appreciation, I made my time with my dog in the morning when we go for a walk. That time is my time for appreciation. So what I have done is I've taken those things that are in the workbook and I've attached them with things that I'm supposed to do every day anyway. And it's fantastic because it serves as a reminder. Oh, I'm going for a walk with the dog. That means I have to appreciate. If I'm on the treadmill, I'm going to do this. If I'm cooking, I'm going to do this. So when you do those tasks, like when I brush my teeth, that's my time for pre-paving and affirming. So it's attached now. I cannot think of brushing my teeth without affirming. And so that kind of makes it a lifestyle, because you're going to do this one thing and you attach the other thing with it, so now you're doing them together. And that's how it becomes a lifestyle. When it's a lifestyle, it's not a chore,
Mhm.
because chores are things that we don't like doing.
Yeah, and that holds a vibration, that holds a frequency. So versus, you're like, I'm excited. I'm going to go walk the dog and do my visualization. That's a much more expanded, higher frequency than, oh, I got to do my
Exactly.
visualizations. So
Exactly.
that kind of leads us into resistance, which is what I wanted to talk
Yes.
about, right? So that's a good example of creating resistance. It's all vibrational. And so, what is resistance and how do we know that we're creating it? I mean, I know I've got some examples that, I've kind of picked up within myself, but, you work with a lot of people and you've been doing
Mhm.
this for many years. Can you kind of share what resistance is in relation to the law of attraction?
Relative to the law of attraction, resistance is an obstacle that prevents you from manifesting the thing that you want. And resistance is an energy block. And you can actually, so there are many things. First of all, some people, and it's all very personalized because everyone is different. Some people accumulate energy blockages in their body. So you can actually do a body scan and you can figure out where the energy blockages are, which is where practices like Reiki and tapping and things like that are really helpful. But some people do not store that in their body. And what it is it's a vibrational resistance that is in your mind. Now, all resistance is created by thinking thoughts that are counter to what you want to accomplish. I want that, but I can't have it because. So this pulling apart of desire and the reasons why you can't have it results in the creation of energetic resistance. So it's not something that like it's not a physical object that you can say, okay, like when you're running a hurdle race, there are actual hurdles that you can see and you can remove them if you wanted to. Energetic hurdles are not hurdles that you can see. And that's where the issue is, because we need to figure out what they are, where they are, and relieve them without actually being able to see them.
Yes.
And this is where a lot of people get stuck, because we are so used to show it to me and then I'll deal with it.
Hmm.
But the way you see that you have resistance is if, and this is what I teach, is if something that you want has not happened and you're not sure that you're moving clearly towards it, your trajectory is, like you are locked in on the target and you're moving towards it. If you don't feel that you're moving towards it, you have resistance.
Hmm.
Because law of attraction actually works really, really quickly. It does not take you change your vibration and everything changes. So if you're not getting results, that means you do have resistance. And the easiest way to deal with resistance without spending too much time trying to find it, because it can be like a needle in a haystack, the easiest way to deal with resistance is just to start appreciating. Just appreciate as much as you can, because it's like you know those old weighing scales that had plates, and whatever plate had more weight in it would
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
okay, it would
Like a
weigh down.
balance. Mhm.
Yes, the balance. Yes, exactly.
Looks like the
So
Libra sign. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So our vibration is like that. If you are predominantly thinking positive thoughts, the positive side of the balance will swing in your favor. If you're thinking mostly negative thoughts, then the negative aspect will become more obvious in your life. And so, what we want to do through gratitude and appreciation is we want to put so much in the balance on the positive side that the negative side goes away automatically. And that's an easy way for dealing with all sorts of situations and resistance without actually having to go look for what belief was it? Like, where do I don't even know what beliefs I have. Like, how do I find my, sometimes they show their heads. Sometimes I become aware that I have a negative belief, but most of the time I don't even know where to go to look for them,
Yeah, and
right?
that's nice, and, I actually had this experience last night. Before I went to bed, I set an intention to show me in my dreams where my block was energetically pertaining to, abundance, specifically. So I went to sleep and I had a dream of my very first job out of college. I was an intern at a software company and I was trapped in a cubicle all day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And sometimes I'd have to stay later to send out a press release. It was horrible. I felt like an animal trapped in a cage at this job. I hated it. So when I woke up this morning, I had this massive aha moment of, in order to make money, I have to lose my freedom. That was my bam, hit me right in the face. So I had a block that if I make a lot of money, I have to be trapped, or I have to be trapped in a job to make money. And that was my very first job where I was making good money, but I felt trapped. And so I woke up this morning and I could feel that. I know when I release something, I get, I call
Yeah.
it the cosmic orgasm. It's kind of funny, but it starts at my feet, rolls up through my body and out my head like a big goosebumps.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
kind of got teary eyed a bit. I said, "Ooh, that was a big one." Like I could
Yeah. Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes.
so I think we
So,
can work with the dream state too to show us.
well, the dream state is one of the ways in which the universe communicates with us, because when we are truly asleep and our head is out of the way, then we are not tapping into any negative beliefs, and we can hear the guidance that we are receiving all the time. We are receiving it while we are awake as well. We just don't hear because we're so busy in our heads. When we sleep, we are not as busy in our heads and our negative beliefs are not activated, so we can hear the guidance that is always there for
Absolutely. And so, Zehra, I kind of wanted to go through a couple of scenarios. I didn't share these with you before, the show, but I wanted to just go through them so we could kind of help people if they're in this situation to move through some resistance. And so, say someone needs to pay their rent or their mortgage by the end of the week. All right. And they don't have the money in the bank for that. So they're stressing out. They're like, but they're also very aware, very privy of the law of attraction. They've been using it in their life. They've been using it as a lifestyle. How, how do they move through the resistance? They know that that money is there. It's just a matter of them aligning to that. How, but oftentimes if the money isn't there, you don't see it in your bank, you're freaking out, right? There's a lot of fear
us.
behind that. And I'm sure you
Yeah.
were in this situation at one point.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
can you share any advice or any knowledge, based off of your experience on how to move through that resistance from energetic, emotional, and physical standpoints?
See, the thing is, unless it's the day when your bill is due, the payment needs to be made, um, you should not think about it. When your thoughts go there, just tell yourself, I'm going to hurt myself by thinking about this. So I'm going to find something else to think about. Oh, look at that. My puppy is wagging her tail. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think about this bottle of water. I love water. So shift your attention away from the bill. Because if it is really a week away or a month away, and you keep thinking about it, every single day that you think about it, you are adding more weight on the negative side of the balance.
Mhm.
So the negative side is going to swing, and you don't want that. So you got to find ways of keeping yourself away from thinking about it and tell yourself something will figure itself out and I will know. The universe will help me with this. But if I keep worrying about it, I am getting in the way of the solution coming to me. So you have to force yourself to take your mind off it. Like one of the ways that I like thinking about this or explaining it to my clients is think about when, if you have children, or every one of us has been a child, so we can all relate to this, is when you fall and you hurt yourself, maybe you scrape your knee. That is the time when we take the child's mind off the scraped knee and we say, oh, because that's how you make them stop crying. And when they stop crying, that's when the healing starts.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, now things are okay. I can go and play and my knee will heal because the healing is natural. So abundance is natural. But if you keep poking a finger in that scrape that you just had, it's not going to heal. You have to take your finger away from poking it. That's when the healing starts. If I keep worrying about the fact that I've got a rent payment that I have to make that is not even today, it's 7 days from now, it's like I'm poking that injury every single day. Not only every single day, I'm poking my finger in it every moment of every day, which is just going to make it worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get infected and get worse. And the way for it to heal is if I don't do that, now abundance is natural, so it will come. Healing is natural when you stop poking the injury with the finger, right? So that's what we have. We have to treat it that way. Abundance is natural. I don't have to do anything about it. I just have to get out of the way of it flowing in. And I do that by not thinking about it.
And not worrying about it. And it reminds me of, Abraham Hicks always uses a great analogy of ordering dinner. Okay. So you're sitting at a table, you pick out your dinner choice off the menu, you order it, and then the waiter takes the order, goes back to the chef starts making it. You don't get up out of your chair and walk back into the kitchen and Hawkeye the chef and stand over. Are you done yet? Are you doing that right? What's going on? No, you trust, you put in your order, you set your intention, and you trust that the food is going to come out when the food is ready. And it's very similar to that, right? So you set your intention that, my desire is to have this money to pay my rent at the end of the week or the end of the month. And then you just let it go and go do something that completely gets your mind off of it. Something that brings you joy, something that is high frequency for you, right?
Exactly. And people find it difficult to do because we like to see evidence. You see, we like to see if it's invisible to us, then it feels like it's not happening, it's not there. But you have to trust. It's like almost like if you have been in a situation where you are a supervisor or a manager who has people working under them, you don't have all your reportees work inside your office so that you can watch them while they're working.
Hopefully not.
Right?
Helicopter boss.
That would be horrible. It would be horrible for you. It would be horrible for them. So you have to trust that the person that you've hired who has the skill set and the resources to do the job will get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the universe, do you think you have more resources than the universe at your disposal? No. Do you think you have more skill than the universe? No. Like I ask people, how many times did you make the sunrise? Like, can you make the sunrise? And the answer is no. And so leave it alone to that energy that has more resources and more skill than you.
Yes.
And let them get it done.
Absolutely. And so here's another scenario. So we talked about inspired action. Okay. And, I hear that a lot in the spiritual community. Why can't we just meditate and will it to come? And I see a lot of people not taking inspired action. And so here's a scenario, let's say that someone is very, very privy to law of attraction. These aren't people who are new to law of attraction. Okay. Either of these scenarios. They have set the intention to create more prosperity in their business. So they have taken inspired action to create certain things, maybe different income streams. However, the income isn't coming in. They hear crickets. There's nothing moving. There's nothing happening. What steps do you suggest for, this person who is listening to their intuition? They are taking the steps, but they aren't seeing any results, transpire from these inspired actions?
Well, first of all, I would suggest sign up for a coaching session.
And these are based off of some of my clients.
because this is a more involved discussion. There are layers to it. But in short, here's what and I know listeners may not be able to see this, but I'll try and be as descriptive as possible. So this pen represents an emotional scale. Right at the top over here is love and joy. At the bottom of the pen is despair. You can be anywhere in between, and I like to divide it in the middle at worry. So good things happen when we are in the positive half of the emotional scale. When you're high on the emotional scale, you're feeling positive emotion. When you're low on the emotional scale, the things that you want cannot happen. However, action can be taken from anywhere on the emotional scale. What we call inspired action is at the top of the emotional scale. So there's this thing called momentum that feels like it's inspired, but momentum can be at any level on the emotional scale. It can be at the negative level of the emotional scale. So just because you were inspired to act does not mean that you're high on the emotional scale. It just means that you're inspired to act because there's so much energy that you've generated at that level on the emotional scale. Because here's the thing, if you were really taking inspired action, then that would mean that you're high on the emotional scale and nothing but good things can happen from there.
Gotcha.
So that means that you are delusional because you think that you're high on the emotional scale, but you're not.
Uh-huh. You're taking inspired action, but it's in a lower frequency.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because you can be inspired from any level. What we call in the inspiration to take action is a result of momentum of thought. Mm-hmm. And momentum of thought can take place from anywhere on the emotional scale.
Oh. So that brings up another question. So, what is that heart-mind alignment? I know that you talk about that a lot, and this obviously led right into that. And so that's a very important collaboration, right? Or between the two,
Absolutely.
right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the collaboration is actually between your heart, your mind, and your body. Mm-hmm. All three collaborate. Your body is responding to every single thought you think. But what I call heart and mind alignment is your heart calls you towards your desires and always tells you all things are possible. Okay? All your desires are born out of your heart. But your mind is the one that creates obstacles by reminding you of all the reasons why the thing that you want cannot happen. So this creates a distance between your heart and your mind. And heart and mind alignment is about closing this gap and bringing your heart and your mind in the same space. When you have heart and mind alignment, the things that you want become possible because what you need to do in order to make progress on those things becomes obvious. You have clarity. Mm-hmm. And so the distance between your heart and your mind is the distance of the emotional scale. The higher you are on the emotional scale, the less distance you have, the more aligned you are between your heart and your mind. That's all. That's heart and mind alignment.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
It's about, so if I was to summarize that in one sentence, heart and mind alignment is the ability to see things through the eyes of source.
Mhm.
And when you look at things through the eyes of source, everything is possible.
Yeah. Unlimited. Which
Unlimited.
leads us right into share with us a little bit more about all the services that you provide and some of the books that you've written that are available to people.
Oh my goodness. So all my books are on Amazon. At this point in time, there are 18 books. By the end of the year, there will probably be 20 or more because I'm always writing. The thing I have realized about myself is that when I really know something to be true, I write a book about it. So as I am learning and growing, I continue to write more books. I am still learning.
So you can go back to your first book and your recent book, and they're probably very different. You can see how much you've grown.
The evolution continues. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And so recently I created an online course called the Law of Attraction Toolkit. Among other courses, there's a course called the Heart and Mind Alignment Method as well. But the toolkit actually has the 13 tools that are law of attraction based, like automatic writing, like visualization, like vision boards. Because the question in my mind is, why is it that a vision board works for one person and doesn't work for another person?
Yeah, good
Why
question.
is it that affirmations make a difference for one person and don't help another person at all? And visualization is the same way. So you got to realize that there are some exercises are appropriate for some people and not for other people. And there are ways of doing these exercises that make them powerful. And there are ways of doing these exercises that will actually make things worse for you. So, so
Which
the
is not what we
toolkit,
want.
well, the toolkit is the most recent addition to a very large uh, array of products and services. But yeah, I do group coaching. I have a group coaching program. I do one-on-one coaching as well, and I have series of courses and books. So there's a lot of variety because I think different things make a difference for different types of people. Not everyone understands things the same way. So yes, and I can be found anywhere online because my name is so unique. There's only one of me in the whole world.
And so what is your website, Zehra?
Um, my social media as well as my website are Z Mahoon. So my first initial and my last name, ZMAHOON.com, and Z Mahoon is my handle across all social media.
That's great. And so, as we wrap up the show, I want to ask one last question. What do you think is the most common myth around the law of attraction?
The most common myth around law of attraction is that I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
That's the most common one. That action is not required. Action is absolutely required because knowledge is just knowledge. It does not become a skill until you apply it. And that application is where action is. So even with understanding law of attraction and using it, it's not just about the knowledge. You got to apply it.
Yeah. And you've got to apply it in this third dimension, right? In this physical reality. It's moving it from the energetic, the unlimited potential, that infinite potential into the physical reality. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but that is the biggest thing is people think that law of attraction means I won't have to take any action. Law of attraction will provide you with guidance. You still have to act on that guidance.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, Zahra, this has been such a fun show, and I'm so glad like I said, we synchronistically planned this on August 8th,
Yeah.
which I think is amazing. And so thank you so much for spending time with us today, for coming on the show and sharing your very vulnerable story, as well as all of the knowledge and wisdom that you've attained through your life experiences. And you are such an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.